fresh scent, bergamot rose, sheer floral, light clean. What do these random phrases have in common? These are the scent profiles of a few feminine hygiene products on the market today. They make promises to make you fight odors, make you feel fresher, or boost your confidence. But this isn't new at all. Companies have been pushing scented products for women specifically for more than a century now. There are even times where the product isn't labeled as scented, but it claims to have an odor shield that works because of added fragrance chemicals. This means that there can be unexpected fragrance chemicals in the products that work to neutralize odors that consumers don't even know of. I couldn't help but ask, why? As someone who wants to pursue a career as an obstetrician gynecologist, which is a doctor that specializes in the female reproductive system and pregnancy, topics like this interest me, especially when they involve things we encounter daily. And when I looked, I couldn't find evidence of a true demand from consumers for the creation of these products. It seemed like an artificial demand was generated by companies that fed on stigma. The stigma around vaginal odors and how they can be offensive to others. This leads many women to think that these products are necessary for vaginal hygiene when they just aren't. And that made sense to me because professionals are often encouraging you to avoid scented products near the vagina. Studies have even found that certain women might be more likely to use these scented feminine products. A study found that use of wipes and douches was highest among Black participants. Product usage also varied by levels of education. Those with bachelor's degrees or higher were more likely to use unscented menstrual products. But scented menstrual products and vaginal hygiene products were more common in those with high school diplomas or lower. This finding was said to be consistent with previously reviewed literature as well. Unfortunately, inconsistencies that follow this pattern are very common in this section of health and medicine. And as a Black woman who will be an OBGYN, these facts continue to remind me of why I'm really pursuing this career. The women being impacted are not just patients I haven't met yet. They could be my family members, they could be my friends, or they could be even me. One study found that about 10% of their population used scented pads and about 4.7% used scented tampons. Now, you would think that's the minority, so that's great. But the reality is that that's only for products being used during their periods. More routine products used daily or a couple days a week are wipes, sprays, and powders. And those were used by 30 to 40% of users. That's very important. We need to reduce these numbers because many people don't even know the side effects that these products can bring. What's the culprit of these issues? Fragrance chemicals. Research has found that these chemicals can include phthalates and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Phthalates are chemical compounds that are used as fixatives. This means that they can help fragrance molecules bind longer to a product. But you should avoid these because evidence has shown phthalates to be endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. They interrupt the normal function of your endocrine system, which is what handles your hormones. These EDCs can confuse how your body makes or processes these hormones. Also, how you react to them and the sensitivity of your body to them. That is a very big deal. Why? Because hormones control your growth, your energy production, and your reproductive system. VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, are also chemicals, but they evaporate easily into the air at room temperature. And they also help fragrances last longer on products, but they can be endocrine disruptors. So, now you know what they can do to your system, but how do they even get in there? One way is through your skin. To be specific, the skin on your vulva and the lining of the vagina, which is known as the vaginal mucosa. For reference, the vulva is what you see on the outside, which is known as your external genitalia. The vagina is that inner passage that connects the uterus, where a baby grows, with the outside of your body. It's more of a canal as opposed to what you're seeing on the outside. The skin and tissue in these areas are much thinner and much more sensitive than the skin on somewhere like your arm or your hand. What does this mean? This means that VOCs and phthalates can be absorbed into the bloodstream easier because there's less tissue that's acting as a barrier, especially with prolonged contacts with products like pads or tampons or the use of a variety of scented products at once in a routine. But get this, companies don't even have to list all fragrance ingredients. They're often protected under trade secrets, but we as consumers deserve to know what we're buying. Federal regulation of these products is done by the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, but it's not really as strict as you may think. Pads and tampons are regulated as medical devices under a 2005 guidance that is mostly recommendations. So as long as you satisfy the requirements of the applicable statutes and regulations, you should be okay as a company. Even the section that's discussing the explanation of materials and ingredients in this product is a recommendation. They recommend that you provide detailed chemical identity and quantity for all components. They also recommend that you provide the chemical identity of each component of every fragrance or deodorant. But you're only really seeing this in companies that actually have it as a part of their mission to provide transparency to their consumers. Most companies are not following those recommendations. A step in the right direction was made in 2022 when a congressional committee directed the FDA to update this 2005 guidance for these menstrual products. And they urged them to focus more on fragrance chemicals and the danger they can pose to people. But as of March 2025, 3 years later, these directives are still under review by the FDA, and no formal update has been made to this guidance. There are also many horror stories and even lawsuits from uninformed users of these products. In 2023, a class action lawsuit was filed against the maker of Vagisil, a very popular brand in this realm of products. The suit was because they were advertising the use of various scented products, and the plaintiff claimed she suffered irritation after using it as directed. Vagisil was claiming that they were safe for vaginal use, even though they had fragrance, which is known to not be suitable for the area. Another similar suit was filed against the Honey Pot in the same year, 2023. But unfortunately, these suits have been dismissed and no settlement was reached. Apart from these suits, one Reddit user even said, "The smell and fragrance of the blood is still burned into my memory, along with the horror of my first yeast infection from having to use the scented tampons for 7 or 8 days because I couldn't afford to buy another box of the right ones." That is not normal with fragrance-free tampons, but that is what the addition of fragrance can do to a body. Besides disrupting endocrines, fragrance products can cause vaginal dryness, irritation, yeast infections, and bacterial vaginosis. These can occur when your body's balance of bacteria gets thrown off. There is a balance of naturally occurring bacteria and yeast in the vagina, and that's called the flora. It works to keep your vagina's pH at the right levels, but introducing fragrance chemicals can tip that balance, and that tipping can cause some of the issues I mentioned earlier. One of the worst parts is that infections like bacterial vaginosis can cause strong fishy odors. That can make you think that you need these scented products even more, but the reality is that these new issues are a result of the solution the companies gave you. Is that a price you'd be willing to pay for the mere possibility of smelling like sheer floral? Probably not. Luckily, there are some fragrance-free or unscented options, but be careful because those aren't the same thing. Fragrance-free products have no added fragrance chemicals at all, and they only smell like the ingredients that are in the product. Unscented products can have masking scents that help neutralize the smells in the product. This confusion in wording can lead people to choose the scented options if that's just what they're used to. When they see fragrance-free or unscented or scented, it can be really overwhelming, even if you know what they're talking about. But don't worry, there are some quick changes you can make to prevent these issues before they show up. Number 1, simplify your routine. The vagina is self-cleaning, and it does so by creating a liquid called mucus that helps remove things from your vagina. It can remove things like dead cells, discharge, semen, or blood. The flora that I previously mentioned also plays a really big role in this with beneficial bacteria. One example of this bacteria is lactobacilli. It creates lactic acid that can keep the flora acidic and prevents the growth of unwanted bacteria. This means that you can get rid of the specialized feminine washes. Stick to just water and you should be okay. But if you feel like you can use very mild, fragrance-free soap for the vulva area only. That's the external area that you see on the outside. Dr. Thershawn Thornton Davis, an OBGYN from Kaiser Permanente, says the vagina isn't supposed to smell like a bed of roses. Normal smells tend to range from barely there to slightly musky, but it differs from person to person. Signs of an issue can be if the smell changes for days at a time from what you're used to into one that's very strong or very fishy. This is something that you'll usually notice with discharge as well. Number 2, where possible, switch to fragrance-free products, not just unscented. Something to note is that these versions can sometimes cost a little bit more than the scented ones. They can require special formulations due to the removal of fragrance chemicals. This is because those ingredients being removed can play other functions in the product. So it takes a little bit more work, money, research and development to find replacements that aren't also fragrances. The good news is that some of these alternatives are available in stores like Walmart for less. One example is the brand Elle. They sell products with similar prices to bigger brands like Always. They sell organic cotton pads and tampons that are free of dyes, fragrances, and synthetic pesticides. But you can also go online for resources. Websites like ewg.org/skindeep can provide you with information on a wide variety of personal care products and the safety of the ingredients in them. Try to make this switch now. Even if you don't currently experience issues while using these scented products, continued use puts you at risk of experiencing them in the future. You may even have hormone issues now that you don't realize until the damage is done. Number 3, if you can talk to a physician, please reach out to them with any questions you have. They are the professionals in the field and they will point you in the right direction. At the end of the day, we choose what we want to do or what we want to use, so make sure to think about these points the next time you're considering these products. And keep in mind that all vaginas have a natural smell. It's just part of being a human with a vagina. Trying to smell better just because society says you need to is not worth risking endocrine disruption, yeast infections, or bacterial vaginosis. We need to stop using these scented products and save ourselves pain, money, and time down the line. Your body will thank you, and you will have peace of mind knowing that you have just made some big steps in the right direction.